The New York Community Trust. For 100 years, New Yorkers have turned to the Trust, creating charitable legacies through their wills to meet changing needs in New York City, Long Island, and Westchester. More at give2.nyc.
We're over 5 years out from the start of the pandemic, but for many, it remains an everyday reality.
I am mostly bedridden, mostly housebound.
I'm Brian Dories from Theater of War Productions. Join me as we explore the lasting impact of COVID on all of us.
When you're sick, there's sort of this chasm between like the world of the well and the world of the sick.
Tonight at 8 p.m. on WNYC.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Regini Vaidyanathan. On today's NewsHour, a late-night phone call from President Trump to the BBC leads to a revealing interview. We'll have that for you on BBC NewsHour, coming up at 9 on WNYC.
Tonight on WNYC, join us for the story of an Indigenous woman's struggle with long COVID, written for The Atlantic and performed at the Green Space at WNYC. Long COVID showed me the bottom of American healthcare. Tonight at 8, right here on WNYC. 76 and partly sunny now. Slim chance of showers and thunderstorms. Partly sunny today and a high of 87. Watch out, though. It's about to feel really warm again. Hot.
Inflation in the U.S. started to accelerate in June.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab knows that investors want control of their financial future. That's why when it comes to wealth management, Schwab is dedicated to giving investors more choices. More at schwab.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. Consumer prices in this country rose 0.3% in June. That is a faster rate of inflation than the month before. May prices had risen just 0.1%. Prices rose for apparel, recreation, and household furnishings. They fell for used cars and airfare. The U.S. computer chip maker NVIDIA says it is going to be able to sell to China again after facing export restrictions under both the Biden and Trump administrations. The announcement came after NVIDIA's CEO met with President Trump. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has more.
The Trump administration had restricted sales of NVIDIA's chips to China, worried they could be used by the Chinese military to develop weapons. But in a blog post yesterday, NVIDIA said it's been assured the Trump administration will issue export licenses so it can sell chips to China again. NVIDIA had designed a special chip for China that complied with U.S. export restrictions, then had to stop selling it in April after the White House imposed new export limits. Now NVIDIA says it has assurances from the U.S. government that export licenses will be granted, and it hopes to start deliveries of the chip to China soon. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
NVIDIA stock, by the way, is up almost 5% in pre-market trading. The EU has reportedly prepared an expanded list of American goods it will tax should the U.S. go ahead with 30% tariffs threatened by the president over the weekend. One U.S. state that stands to lose in particular is the one that exports the most to Europe, and that would be Texas. Marketplace's Elizabeth Trovall has that.
EU trade supports some 280,000 jobs in Texas, according to the European Commission. Texas exports about $100 billion of goods and services to Europe. They include things like chemicals, aerospace products, resin, and professional services.
That's one, of course, pretty easy to start losing that business to other people because it's mostly relationship based.
That's Texas economist Ray Perryman, who says above all other exports, when we look at the EU-Texas trade relationship, energy is king.
We have a lot of oil and gas activity, a lot of petrochemicals, a lot of, more recently, liquefied natural gas.
And in the unlikely event these tariffs actually happen and Europe retaliates, Kishore Gawande with UT Austin says,
that doesn't make great sense from a Texas point of view because, we export all this LNG.
Liquefied natural gas is a growing Texas export, and it's helped Europe decrease its reliance on Russian fuel. In the Dallas Fed's recent survey, several energy firms cited tariffs as hurting the sector and increasing costs. I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow futures are down 52 points. That is about 0.1%. S&P futures up 0.3%. NASDAQ futures up 0.6%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.41%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Odoo, offering software that provides building blocks for creating a custom software suite. Odoo, what businesses need. And by Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks delivers what's next in cybersecurity innovation to protect today's digital way of life. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com.
The big tax cut and spending law that President Trump signed this month rolled back a lot of spending that was tackling climate change. Tax credits for solar and wind projects and for electric cars and home energy efficiency all getting phased out. Marketplace's Amy Scott from our How We Survive Climate team has been reporting on the changes. She spoke with my colleague, David Brancaccio.
What is the bottom line for the Earth's heating climate?
The law is really going to slow down the transition away from fossil fuels to cleaner energy sources, at least here in the U.S. It phases out tax credits for things like electric cars and home EV chargers, rooftop solar panels, heat pumps, making all of those things far more expensive for consumers. Commercial wind and solar projects will also now have to meet strict new deadlines to qualify for credits. And the law also increases subsidies for fossil fuel extraction. All told, an analysis by the UK climate site Carbon Brief estimates U.S. emissions will now drop by just 3% by the end of this decade, compared to the goal of 40% under the Biden administration.
All right, so we might get 3% instead of 40%. Now, where does all this leave the U.S. versus the rest of the world? I mean, this is very much a global matter.
Yeah, well, experts I've been talking to say it definitely hurts our standing in the world, not just in terms of climate leadership, but also economically. I recently interviewed Bill McKibben, the environmentalist and writer, and he says in particular China has taken a big lead on clean energy. It's currently building about half the world's capacity, and it's exporting its solar panels and EVs around the world.
We're essentially ceding the future to the Chinese. And it's possible that 20 years from now, the U.S. will be a kind of museum of coal-fired power plants and internal combustion engines, while the rest of the world has moved on to cheap, clean technology.
And you said some of these tax credits don't expire right away. I guess that means folks could use them if they act soon?
Yeah, pretty quickly. If you want to buy a new electric vehicle, you have until September 30th of this year, so not much time, but that's worth up to $7,500 off a new car or up to $4,000 off of a used vehicle, depending on your income. For rooftop solar, your system has to be fully installed by December 31st of this year to qualify. So experts say, it's still possible. If you call around to installers, you can see how much of a credit is available to you and whether they can get you on their schedule.
Amy Scott hosts Marketplace's Climate Solutions podcast called How We Survive. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts or stream it off of marketplace.org. Amy, always good to catch up.
You too, David. Thanks.
And that was Marketplace's David Brancaccio speaking with Marketplace's Amy Scott. Our producers are Ariana Rosas and Erica Soderstrom. Our senior producer is Alex Schroeder. Our supervising senior producer is Meredith Gerritsen-Morby. And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.